Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It is a hump day edition. It is a Wednesday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. If you want some good jewelry, go check them out. Fine jewelry, watches, and much more. Family owned and operated with the largest selection of natural diamond jewelry. Gators lose last night. Just bury them, get themselves in a huge hole, down 26, battle back, take the lead, and lose in the final seconds. We'll talk a lot about that today. We'll have Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun, who really likes basketball, give us his thoughts. Georgia they couldn't have played any better in the first half, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Baseball, I don't know if baseball won or not. I know there was some controversy going on in that baseball game with Stetson. I need to look up on it. I think Stetson is protesting the ball game because of this new double first base that a lot of college. I know the SEC has implemented that rule this year. We'll have to figure out.
Well, I can.
JC, you're on the Titan More hotline, by the way.
I can kind of tell you what happened there, QB. The Stetson Hatters appeared to have tied the game in the seventh inning of that game, and then replay officials come in and said that the runner only touched the white part of first base and didn't touch the orange safety bag, whatever. Yeah. And this is coming from the wonderful Graham Hall on X. So the run that Stetson would have scored was taken off the board, and Florida maintained a 2-1 lead and then went on from there. But, with the basketball, this doesn't really change any of my thinking about the basketball team just because, they went to Georgia and Georgia had the game of their life. It was their third quad one win for Georgia. They had beaten St. John's in Kentucky prior to this game. So that was very important for them. They were playing with their hair on fire in the first half. And I think they caught Florida by surprise. They played great perimeter defense. And the Gators had some issues dealing with that. But to Florida's credit, folks, they come back from 26 points down. Think about it. The Gators had a 6-game winning streak going in where they covered in every game. And Florida is one of only 4 teams. One of only 4 teams to have covered this year 20 times or more. Think about that. And what do I always say, QB? Good teams win and great teams cover. And so I think that this was just one of those night games on the road on a Tuesday, and it didn't go Florida's way. Don't lose your mind, Gator fans. But I do want to pump the brakes a little bit on, we're going to go to the Final Four. We're going to be the number 1 seed because one bad night in the NCAA tournament and your year is over.
Well, that's for every team, Jason.
But everybody has to deal with that. Correct. So, you're playing for seeding right now. You're playing for seeding.
Yeah, I think people, Joe Lenardi, which usually is pretty spot on, he had us before the game even started last night as a 2 seed.
Yeah.
It's due to our quad one wins. We don't have as many as the other teams in front of us. So we're probably going to be a 2 seed unless we win the SEC basketball tournament.
And listen, folks, you don't deal as a 2 seed. You don't, if you win, you don't play the 1 seed to the very end. So I think it's good. And Lenardi has Florida right now 2 seed, number 5 overall. Look, if you had told people in December or November that the Gators at the end of February would be the number 5 seed overall, would you take it?
Yeah,
of course.
So here's my thoughts, because I was concerned about this. This is taking nothing away from Micah Hanlockton. Okay, he's a good basketball player for what he does at 7'1". I think he's a bad fit for this team, personally. He's not much of a threat offensively at all. And I just think when he's in the game, we don't play like we've played all year long. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah. And it's nothing against him, and he will be a big part of the program next year probably. But I think the way we play and we get up and down the floor right now, I think he's a liability when he's in the game. That's my 2 cents of watching. Ever since he's come back, I don't think we've played great.
Well, I think the best Florida's played with the bigs was against Auburn when Condon and Haught were doing their thing.
And they made shots. That's the
They
thing.
made
If you
shots.
look yesterday, Georgia did a tremendous job, especially early in the first half, of their perimeter defense with
That's
us
right.
around the 3-point line.
100%.
And they
100%.
left Hawk and Condon open, and they didn't make any of their threes.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you just got to hope that, Florida, when they get into a competitive atmosphere in the tournament, can answer with those threes. A team that was raining threes last night was in Tuscaloosa. They hit 20 some odd threes. If they hit 23s, they're going to be a real issue for folks. And they beat Mississippi State by 30 some odd points. But the Gators will be fine, folks. Listen, yes, they had LSU. I mean, LSU had a 22-2 run on them. Yes, they still won by double digits. And yes, they didn't play well in the first half last night. But to their credit, they came back and they were winning with a minute to go. And some nobody off the bench for Georgia hits a three. Okay. You know what?
He's a starter.
He's a starter. Whatever he is, he's still a nobody.
Kane Blue can shoot it now.
Kane Blue. Okay, Kane Blue. So
Blue Kane. His name is Blue Kane.
You don't even know his damn name. All right. So
I love his name.
Yeah,
it's a great name.
He hit the shot of the game. He hit the shot of the game that saved their.
If you had another kid, you wouldn't want to call him Blue Kane.
I mean, I would.
Did you see? Kirby was courtside with his son and wife.
Yeah.
And Kirby's son had a actual blue cane.
I gotta give Georgia credit too in one way. They gave the Gators 90 seconds to leave the court after the game, and then the crowd ran on. So the PA system says, "Hey, folks, give the Gators 90 seconds to get out of here, and then let's party." And that's exactly.
And they don't have to pay the fine, I don't think.
Right. So that's exactly what the fans did. And good, listen, it was the biggest moment of their season. They are a bubble team if there ever was one. So not that I'm really losing sleep over the fortunes of the Georgia Bulldogs, but I don't think this is going to affect Florida one way or the other, frankly.
No, I mean, you want to win the game. Look, a lot of people on YouTube brought to you by Claude Plummer talking about we didn't come to play in the first half. See, I disagree with that. If you go back and you watch, every shot Georgia took, they made.
They made everyone.
Every rebound where two Georgia and two Gators go up for, the ball tips, goes straight to the Georgia guy. Sometimes that happens in sports.
Yeah.
I think the most critical part that I take out of watching that game last night is we missed our free throws.
Absolutely.
They were terrible at the free throw line.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that, worries you when it comes down to a one-game season.
But we're a good shooting team. It was just one of those nights, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I think that's exactly right. And it happens in this conference, folks. It happens in this conference. It's just the way this conference is constructed. You're looking at potentially 13 teams getting into the big dance. It's just one of those leagues and one of those years where this league is so far and away better than everyone else from a top to bottom basis that it's really unprecedented when you think about it. I don't ever remember this league being anything remotely close to as good as it is right now. Not even close.
Shannon, I got a text here that Kyle Shanahan is giving up play calling in San Francisco, and he's not. He just gave the guy a title. He's not giving up play calling.
Clint wants some golf advice. He says he shanks his 60 degree. He says it goes right.
I hear that.
So
I didn't
Clint,
hear that.
You're hitting it off the hosel. You're hitting it on the inside of that face. You're hitting it on where the shaft and the base. You're cutting it right there. You just got to work on that on contact and maybe something with your stance or something. But don't shank those wedges, bro. You shank those wedges, give up, because that's called that's probably one of the worst things that happens to a golfer is shank.
Yeah, if you get the shank, I don't. Yeah.
We've been there, QB. I mean, we know.
I've only had it one time, and it was
I remember
playing at your ballpark.
I saw it
because y'all have these mats you got to warm up with. I didn't have my gloves; they were still They were in the parking lot, and so I used a guy who's 5'9", his 7-iron just to get loose.
Yeah,
and the club was too short, and I kept hitting dead ass right. I mean, just into the woods. And I'd never been so nervous in my life going to a golf course or to the first tee after hitting 7 straight shanks with Blaine.
It blows your brain.
7-iron.
I mean, it makes you feel like just jumping in a lake or something. It's a terrible feeling. Clint, hang in there. Work on your stance, maybe on your hands a little bit. You'll get that thing across.
Chris and Mayak on the Titan our text line says, do you think the missed free throws had anything to do with the screaming girl every time they shot a free throw? I didn't hear that. Daryl says on the Titan our text line, last night was one of those nights in hoops. We missed a lot of free throws, but we are one of the best teams in the country. I agree 100%. Somebody said here that I guess he was referring to me talking about Hand-Lockton back. He goes, he's our best rim protector. Yeah, but we haven't needed a rim protector all year long. Like I said, it's nothing against him because I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's a good mix for this team. That's just my opinion.
No, I mean, the best they played with two bigs was with Condon and Hart hitting shots against Auburn. That's
when you have Chinyulu.
Yeah, sure.
And you got all those guys. I just think you got too many people trying to rotate them right now.
Well, they're deep.
And I think Todd's going to realize in about 2 games he's going to go back to what he had at the beginning of the year.
I'm gonna say that by the time they get to the real important games, they're going to go with a 7 or 8 man rotation and leave it at that. I mean, you just can't. You got to keep the best 5 in there that match up with whoever you're playing.
Yeah. Tony brings up a great point, and I agree to a point here. He says, this is Facebook Live brought to you by Melon. Oh, crap. It went away. He says, the key to hitting a 60 degree is don't hit it. Stop at a 56. So I play a 50, 54, and a 58.
Okay.
60 degrees, you hardly ever need to hit a 60 degree in golf. And if you're a high handicapper, there's no reason to ever try to hit some big high flop shot.
I only do it in the bunker. I only use
but you can take your 58 and open it up a little bit, and you can control it better. So
I think it's just what you're comfortable with. But I never use a 60 outside.
Yeah, I don't play with a 60.
No. So I've got a 50, a 56, and a 60. I don't need anything more than 56. 56 is my club. But the 60 is sometimes if I'm buried or if I'm deep in there, I need some loft. I'll get it out of the bunker with that. But the 50 degree is my 100-yard shot. 50-degree club. That's
Gator
it.
Art says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum. I told you guys Martin should have come off the bench. He isn't starter worthy. I disagree with that. He's played in a Final Four. Yeah. Aberdeen is a spark plug that they need. They peaked when he was starting. I don't know about that. I would, again, we always sit here and talk about what we would do.
Yeah.
I would go back to my regular starting 5 at the beginning of the year. And I would have Aberdeen and Condon or Houck coming off the bench, and I would play 7 or 8 guys.
That's it. I mean, that's what I'm thinking that will happen in the tournament. There's no margin for error right there.
Yeah.
When we get to the tournament, but there's
you don't really need to be deep unless people get in foul trouble.
Yeah, correct. And or hurt. And I think in the tournament, listen, folks, it's almost March, but it's not March yet. So let's just pump the brakes on some things. It's going to be fine. This team is going deep. I feel very confident. Not that should reassure anybody, but I feel very confident that this is a deep run coming for this team. This team is good. And they just got beat last night. It's okay. It's okay. It's not like they went to, Seton Hall and got blown out by the team that's under 500. They lost to a team that's trying to make the NCAA tournament. It's okay. It was a very emotional game for Georgia. Mike White was 0-6 against the Florida Gators. Okay. At some point, if he's still a head coach in this league, he's going to win one game against Florida at some point. There's just too many opportunities not to, right? So last night was just one of those perfect nights for them, and they played great. So good credit, but they're not better than the Gators. Okay, let's just be honest about it. Florida is going to be fine. I really do think that, but I want to kind of pump the brakes on the Final Four talk and all that crap. Let's just get
JC,
through.
Here's the thing is. There's no, it doesn't matter if the Gator fans talk about Final Four, Auburn talks about it. Nobody knows if they're going to make the damn Final Four. Okay.
Right.
Usually the best teams don't make it, quite honestly.
A lot of times they don't. They get upset.
Wolf Gator says on YouTube, slow starts in the NCAA tournament games will doom you. These games are played slower in half court. More TV timeouts. That's not true. Need to come off the bus ready to play. They're going to have the same amount of TV timeouts as they do on regular.
Our boy Chris, though, was saying to me the other night at the bar and table how he read something where the officials sometimes in these games have a way of the way the games are called. I couldn't really understand.
No, they can do that. I'm not one big on arguing about officiating.
I mean,
I
CD's
I
pretty
did
good.
think Georgia got a lot of calls last night.
Yeah,
I'm not wanting to sit here and use that as an excuse, but they got a lot of calls.
Yeah.
Actually, when Blue Kane hit his three-pointer to go ahead there at the final seconds, it should have been it was not a moving screen, it was a running screen. The guy that was screening, I don't know if it was, I don't know who was the defender, but he literally, it was so illegal, it should have been called, but it wasn't. But that's light. QC
Kinda like
Kinetics
that.
for long-lasting relief, no surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics. We got JC. We'll have Kevin Brockway. So did the Gators win the baseball game or not? Do we know?
Yes, because Stetson protested. Yeah, Stetson protested the outcome, and it look. I think they got a legitimate claim. This whole thing about the orange safety. I don't.
Well, the whole SEC. When you get into SEC play, the
Yeah.
entire SEC baseball season has the double first base.
Who came up with this idea? When did this idea come up, QB?
Well, because it's for a safety factor.
So for 150 years, we've been playing baseball the right way, and they come up with the safeties.
Well, it's kind of like you can't touch the quarterback, and you got to, know, if you blow on you blow on a quarterback, he goes down. It's a penalty. It's kind of the same thing. All right, the Gators won 5-1.
Yeah. Stetson's protesting. They thought they tied the game. All right, whatever. I mean, the day I worry about what Stetson does, I mean, I don't.
Well, Stetson's always got a good little.
No, they're fine, but they're Stetson. All right, they're Stetson. So yeah, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right.
Barone says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality. All Florida needs to do the next two games in the SEC tournaments, play to get everyone in a rhythm and meshing together for the big tournament. Again, I'm limited in my players if I'm coaching.
All right, 7 or 8 deep. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's what you do. I mean, these guys aren't tired. There's no time for that. That's not. It's going to be foul trouble that expands the player sheet, and I hopefully that's not going to be a problem for this team. But I like it when they play fast, and when they play fast, they are just assassins.
Yeah, and we just look. I know people talk about we didn't come ready to play. I don't look at it that way. I just think Georgia. I mean, they have never shot the basketball like they did the other night in the first 10, 12 minutes. They had 27 points with 12 minutes to go in the first half.
Right. And not to jump past Texas A&M, because that's very important coming up. But when they play at Alabama, you're going to see a completely different type of game, because Alabama won't play that perimeter defense like Georgia does. Alabama's going to run with you, and Florida's going to like that. So I would say that when they do go to Tuscaloosa and play Alabama, it will fit more of what I think the Gators like doing, and you're going to see another really tight game. But Texas A&M is the big one right now. You got to come back home, need a 12,000, 11,000, 10,000, whatever that place now holds. I think it's 10, just over 10. And they need to be loud because the Aggies are tough. They're tough. They're very good. Yeah. And I think we've got a real opportunity on Saturday to watch a really exciting game.
This Day in Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life. Campus USA Credit Union. 1989, the NFL's Dallas Cowboys fired Coach Tom Landry after a 29-year coaching career.
Wow.
That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. All right, JC, it's time for our Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte, surrounding areas. Go check them out, peachlanddental.com. They are now on the Florida swing, I think in Palm Beach Gardens.
That's right.
This week. And
Cognitive Classic.
I actually have a pen. I will write it down since Jason doesn't do his job. I know Zach puts it up now. But I think I had the highest my man finisher. Aaron Rye.
Yeah, finisher.
Came in like 3rd or 4th last week.
Yes, you had the
best putt. He's a terrible putter like me.
He is. God, you know
he's one of the best ball strikers on tour. Hits every green and can't make a putt.
He reminds me of Cam Young. I mean, the guy hits the 10.
Well, he doesn't hit it as far as Cam Young.
No, but he can't. But Cam Young can't putt. If he had putted, he'd already have a couple wins on tour. He's that talented. But putting is everything. All right, I'm gonna. You want me to start, or you want to start? You want me to start? I'm going to start with a guy who's played very well out west. Coming back to Florida. He's a Florida State Seminole. He's back from injury, and I think Daniel Berger Daniel Berger's the guy I think that's going to do well down there. I just think he's comfortable.
I think he grew up down in that area.
Yeah. I think he's going to feel comfort down there to play very well. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take Andrew Novak.
Oh, boy, that guy kills the ball. Oh, my God. How about this guy? Joel Damon last week finished 6th. He's a guy, tall dude with a hat. He was on an HBO series, and he loves playing in Florida. I'm not picking him, though. So let's go to Austin Eckroat. Let's go to
Eckroat.
Yep. He missed the cut at the Genesis. I think he comes to Florida and plays better.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go with Billy Horschel. He's been playing pretty decent.
Yeah, he's been playing very well.
He should know how to. He's from down that way. He should know how to play on those Bermuda greens.
So we're going with 4 golfers. So I'm going to go with a foreign player from Denmark who's about to break through, and that would be your Nikolai Højgaard.
Oh, that was my next pick.
Nikolai Højgaard, who is ranked 68th in the world, but the guy is playing. He's a birdie machine. This guy can light up a course like this, in my opinion. Give me Nikolai Højgaard from, I would guess, Sweden. No, Denmark. Excuse me, Denmark.
Yeah.
He's a Danish player. Danish. Okay, Denmark.
Give me Russell Henley.
All right, and then I'll take a Georgia Bulldog like you and get Brian Harmon on the sheet, and that'll be my 4. And God, I hope I get a top 10 finish out of these because my golf.
I'm gonna take Shane Lowry. So I have Andrew Novak, Billy Horschel, Russell Henley, and Shane Lowry. You have Daniel Berger, Austin Eckroat, Nicholas Højgaard, and Ryan Harmon.
Nicholas,
Nicholas, all the same. And he's got a twin brother. I think he's got a twin brother on tour.
Yes, he does. These guys are supremely talented golfers, man. They're going to break through. These dudes. I love the PGA Tour because you see these guys break through like we had last week. And it just warms your heart watching these guys win for either the first time in a long time or for the first time ever. And it's wonderful. Seeing Brian Campbell win last week was just wonderful because of how much emotion his wife was showing there on the 18th green. He hit a ball QB that went OB.
Oh my gosh.
It went OB, hit a bamboo tree and then bounced off a cart path.
It was the greatest break in the history of golf.
It was. And, Polgeider is going to be a guy we hear about because he's 20 years old. He hits it 400 yards. And
he's the longest hitter on tour at 20 years old.
It's incredible. We're going to hear from him. But this kid, Campbell, last week, and then he smokes a 3-wood off dirt, gets it in there to his wedge range of about 70-some-odd yards and stuffs it 3 feet below the hole and wins the tournament. So he took advantage of his break, and he got lucky. Sometimes you have to get lucky.
Got to get lucky.
That's right. But that ball was going out. It was over, and Poltergeist was going to win.
It was so far out of bounds.
It was hard. Well, he was shaken up because he missed a birdie putt from 15 feet on the prior extra hole that would have won him the tournament, and he was short on it. So he's probably thinking about how do I come up short when I had that hole wide open for me, knowing that all I had to do is make it. And then he just drilled it right, and it got the hand of God pushed it into play. So he won. Yep. He was meant to win.
Text here on the Titan MR text line from Jimmy. He says, Shane, you are correct. Look at Alabama. When they make shots, they're hard to beat. That's usually the case in basketball.
I love that analysis. I mean, you don't have to pay Jay Billis $5 million a year for that. That is free. Good job.
That's great.
Good analysis. Job.
If you make shots, you can win a lot of games.
Good job.
Well, I mean, it's the truth. I mean,
it is. We got a great night tonight. I love Wednesday nights in college basketball, especially in the SEC. It's a very loaded schedule tonight, as they usually always are on Wednesday nights. But Vandy at A&M, watch that game because A&M will be here. They're 7.5-point favorites. Auburn is at home again. They play all their games at home. Auburn does. They're laying 12.5 to the Mississippi Rebels, who better start winning some games. Oklahoma, Kentucky, interesting game. Oklahoma on the bubble. Big Blue Nation coming in. Big Blue Nation coming off a loss. 2.5-point favorites. I really like Kentucky in that one. And then I really like Arkansas laying the 3.5 at home against the Longhorns, who are struggling. I think Arkansas has found something with the big Z-man in the middle, And offensively, Arkansas seems to be putting things together. I think the Hogs win this game by no less than 6. I'm going to take Arkansas laying 3.5 against the Horns tonight at home in Bud Walton. And then a big game in the Big Ten, Michigan State, Maryland. Maryland's playing very good basketball. Michigan State is always good. They're ranked 8th. I like Michigan State catching the 4 points on the road at Maryland.
Speaking of how, I mean, Iowa State's a very good basketball team, and they lost at Oklahoma State last night, Jason.
They did. No, and they got a couple of injuries that they're dealing with right now. And it's true. This conference schedules are rugged, and it just happens sometimes on the road for you. It just doesn't come to you. Iowa State's got a little bit of a losing streak, but they'll be in the big dance. They'll be a top 5 seed, and we'll see them play. But it's just so hard. This league, I've never seen a league like this. How difficult this league is. I mean,
Tennessee struggled last night at LSU.
Tennessee did struggle last night. Offensively, they concern me. I've always said.
Well, they're always terrible offensively under Rick Barnes.
Well, Barnes is great defensively, and that could keep them alive. But Oklahoma tonight against Kentucky, I'm going to take Kentucky, but I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if Oklahoma wins this game. And they're also a bubble team. They need a win like this. That would give them a big win, quad one type win or whatever you call it. And Arkansas is also a team that's on the bubble that needs to win. So I look at those two home teams, but I think I'm going to take Kentucky and I'm going to take the Hawks tonight.
Gary on the Titan MR text line says, did you guys happen to watch Luka and the Lakers against the Mavericks last night?
I missed it. I
didn't watch it.
Well, it's late. Those games are late. I'll tell you,
the NBA does not interest me until playoff time.
Right. Yeah. No, understand. Unless you're gambling on them on these games. The Lakers won by 8 last night. Luka had 19 and 15 and 12, so he had a triple-double. So that's kind of what gets people's attention. But a team that, if you are following the NBA, keep your eye on Golden State with what they're doing with Jimmy Butler now. Jimmy Butler came from Miami.
I didn't even know he was on their team now.
Yes. Well, he hated playing in Miami for whatever reason. He didn't play in Miami. They finally traded him to Golden State. That is exactly the kind of player that team needed. And if you like Golden State, I think you're feeling pretty good about that. And then Cleveland and Boston are clearly the class of the East. Cleveland's got I think they've got the best record in the entire NBA, but the Celtics are the team to beat, period. That's just a fact. But Cleveland and Boston in the East, watch out for those teams. Memphis is high scoring as hell. They scored 151 points last night with the Suns, and Houston is a vastly improved team. I'm starting to kind of watch the NBA a little bit to try to get a feel for what looks good out there. But watch out for Golden State with Jimmy Butler.
All right, before we let you go, Mark on YouTube asked this question. Says, Shane, have you seen the TikTok? No, well, I don't have TikTok, so I've not seen it going around how the SEC isn't that strong because the conference is 500 since conference play began. I've heard people talk about that. Of course, it's 500. You got 16 freaking teams, right?
Yes, you do. You have 16 teams.
Yeah, so there's no way anybody's going to be above 500 in the league. I mean, the entire league, because you have an even number.
I don't understand 500 thing. What are we talking
about? The conference is at 5. I mean, like the winning percentage is 500 because JC, when Florida plays Georgia, somebody has to win. Okay.
Yeah.
Georgia won, Florida lost. Okay. Last night, Tennessee won, LSU lost. So there's 8 games in conference each time they play, right?
Right.
So 8 teams are going to win, 8 teams are going to lose.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the conference is always going to be at 500.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I guess he's saying, I've seen it, people talking about, well, the SEC's not that great. They're only 500 in winning percentage or whatever in conference. Well, they have to be. You can't get any better. You can't get any worse.
Well, I would just inform our illustrious viewer that we're going to have probably 12 to 13 teams in the dance. I don't think that's not mediocre. Okay. We'll just put it to you that way. And every one of these 13 teams can go past the first and second round. The Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that first weekend, every one of these teams can get to the Sweet 16, in my opinion, just because of how athletic these teams are. These teams are extremely athletic. Even some of the worst teams. Look at Arkansas, dude. They get going offensively. You don't want to have anything to do with them. And when Alabama hits 23s, the Hawks wouldn't beat them. So it's just tough, man. This league is hard. And to be in the top 3 of this league is saying something, especially when you go through the grind of playing on the road, for as long as 5-7 days. Every conference does it. I understand, but this league is better than the ACC. It's a lot better. Look at the head-to-head matchup they had with the ACC. It's better than the Big 12. It's as good or better than the Big 10. It's better than these leagues up north. It has dominated college basketball conversation amongst the pundits in the entire year because of how good the Southeastern Conference is. It's not a joke. Yeah. It's true. It's not a fantasy. It's a hell of a league. It's incredible.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, Gator Art says, hearing JC say Cam Young can't putt, he's going to win by 8 now. Well, he can't.
I hope hey, Gator Art, I'm rooting for him, man. I love the dude. The guy hits it 320 and just can't make that 8 foot.
They say he is an asshole.
Okay, so that's because he's probably an asshole because he knows
he can't putt.
Win, but he can't putt. Yeah. Most people on the golf course, here's a pro tip for you guys who don't play enough golf, that when you walk off the green after you miss a putt, you're an asshole, pretty much.
Well, not necessarily. I don't know if it has anything to do with that. Tesori caddied for him a little bit and just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, maybe. Okay, fine, whatever. Hey, listen, he's going to break through one.
Well, the caddy makes a living on how the guy performs, and obviously, if he can't putt and can't win, I'm going to a different bag too.
And then I'll probably be an asshole afterwards.
Yeah. All right, JC, have a good day. We'll see you.
All right, guys. See you Friday.
I said JC joins us on the Titan MR Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Quick timeout. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll be joined by Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun. You're watching and listening PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We'll be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Sign, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
Make plans for Thursday, February 27th to be at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill to raise a glass to our Elijah Craig Single Barrel Lunch Party. Be a part of an exclusive evening as we unveil our 9-year-old uncut Elijah Craig Single Barrel.
Only bottled at 121.1 proof.
Enjoy indulgent bourbon-inspired bites served in a casual mingle-style setting
with a Spurrier's twist.
Your ticket includes one exclusive bottle of Spurrier's Elijah Craig Single Barrel, signed by Steve Spurrier himself.
It's going to be a great night. Get your tickets at spurriers.com.
Unleash the Inferno.
Naysayers. Setbacks. Injuries. Life throws a lot of hurdles your way. The key is just keep jumping them.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center Studios, Miapa Latin Cafe. Discover the ultimate Cuban culinary experience at Miapa Latin Cafe. 5 locations in Gainesville and Alachua. Never far from the best Cuban food north of Miami. Back to the Titan MR Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're joined by Gainesville Sun's Kevin Brockway. Good morning, Kevin. How you doing, bud?
Shane, how are you?
I'm doing well. Obviously, a lot of people are upset over the loss. I just say, you know what? It was a hell of a comeback. You dig yourself 26 points down on the road. I don't even know how you come back from that, but they did. Just give me your overall thoughts of the game last night.
Well, yeah, first 10 minutes were kind of a no-show. I mean, you got to come out with energy. Georgia, I think, desperate team at home, needing that win. They're on the bubble. I've seen it both sides. I mean, I could go back to 2010 when Florida, were two NIT seasons and, Tennessee came in highly ranked, probably top 5 team in the country at the O-Dome, and Florida, found a way to pull out that win. So it kind of reminded me of that when you're on the other side of it. I've seen it, for so many years where a team can kind of, raise its level of play when its back is against the wall. And certainly Georgia was that. And they do have some talented pieces that Mike has recruited, that kind of flourished yesterday, Demery and Asa Newell. But, there are still some things you can do coming out of the gate, to make a team a little uncomfortable. And I think, Shane, the one thing about this team is, even though it's ranked 7th, in adjusted defensive efficiency as a whole, occasionally you have those defensive lapse games. We saw it obviously against Missouri, we saw it against Kentucky, and then you saw it again last night where you allow a team to, score 51 in the first half and shoot 70%. Listen, Georgia made some contested shots, but they had some, easy ones too, or open looks on some threes as well. And, but the amazing thing, right? It's 80-78. Florida has a chance to close it off and pull off a miraculous comeback like South Carolina, and then Blue Kane pops open and hits a 3-pointer. And you look at it on film, and could a moving screen have been called? Possibly.
Oh, that was a running screen, not just a moving.
Well, but the refs generally that late in the game, and again, this is and home court too. They're not necessarily going to make that call.
No,
but I did see a lot of outrage about it, and it could have been, made. But again, even if Will Richard gets through that screen, he was still a step late. And I think, fatigue comes into play when you're playing uphill and when you're down 26 points in that situation in the final minutes. And Richard was on the floor, 34 minutes and played a miraculous game offensively, a career high 30 points. So all that kind of factors into it, but you try to move on. You got 3 left, 2 at home. And I think to get the 1 seed, you got to probably win out in the regular season.
Yeah. I thought Mike White's plan against Florida was pretty good. And I don't know back the X's and O's of basketball as well as I did football, but he basically look, we're gonna try our best not to let the 3 guards knock down 3-pointers. If Houck and Condon, we'll leave them open and we'll take our chances of them making them. They didn't make any of them that I can remember. Whereas in the past few weeks, those guys have knocked down shots. Do you see teams kind of taking that blueprint and implementing it moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think on the scout, I mean, when you take a look at the 2 leading scorers, I think teams are always going to try to take, they're going to try to take Elijah Martin and Walter Clayton Jr. away. I think that's kind of the base of the offense and what, most teams try to do. But some do it more effectively than others. And sometimes, I think it's up to the player, right, to make tough contested shots. Or, you go back to the Oklahoma game last week where Porter Moser was talking about how, Walter Clayton Jr. is this kind of guy that can step back and hit a 20 and 25 footer. And those shots, weren't falling until late in that game against Georgia. So it was just kind of one of those nights for him. More concerning again is the 5 turnovers. And, we've discussed, I think he's made strides as a point guard. I mean, I think he's an excellent passer, but occasionally at times, the ball handling or the decision-making, there were a few careless ones in that game that proved to be pretty costly as well. And, you didn't get as much, off the bench as you would like. Denzel Aberdeen, he looked like he was on the come as a starter, and then he goes to the bench and kind of disappears a little bit. So, you'd like to see that pick back up as well and get a little more production off the bench too.
Do you think moving forward that Todd only plays so many guys? Like I said this earlier on the program, Kevin, to JC. This is nothing against Micah Hanlockton because I think he's a very good basketball player, but I don't think he fits this team very well. And obviously, he's only been back for what, 3 games, something like that.
Yep.
And he's not in basketball shape. I know he defends the rim and all that stuff, but my eyes just tell me that he just doesn't fit well with this team. And I could be 100% wrong, but that's what it tells me.
It's a fair point, Shane, in the fact that, obviously the team likes to get up and down the floor. And you mentioned Micah being in basketball shape. It's like, can he run with this team? I think if you sprinkle him in situationally, and listen, they had to play him a little bit yesterday because of the foul trouble with Chinyelu, you know what I mean? And that was another disappointing aspect. You come from scoring, a career-high 19 against LSU, and you only last 15 minutes on the floor because you're in foul trouble the whole game. You only scored 2 points. He was another one that really kind of, disappeared a little bit in that game. So you kind of had to play him. I mean, Mike had 9 rebounds in 12 minutes. I mean, that's valuable. That's what he does. I thought, the other thing too is, in that Georgia game is in the first half, they were out rebounded, and then they obviously, flipped around the rebounding margin in the second half. But that's an area where they have to get back to, Shane, I think too, is, this was a team that, the first half of the season was really ferocious on the offensive boards, and I haven't seen it as ferocious, the last 2 months. And some of it's the front court injuries. And, Alex Condon obviously coming back, he was a little rusty too. He was 1 of 7 from the floor, but got to the line a lot. But I think as Condon gets healthier and as Micah gets healthier, I think you're going to, need to see that rebounding step up a little bit, especially these last 2 games. You got Texas A&M coming in, and they're now the best rebounding team in the SEC, and Florida's second in that regard.
Yeah. I'm probably in the minority. I don't think Walter Clayton shoots the ball enough, personally. And I know he's the point guard, and we're trying to, dish it, share the ball. Am I crazy to think that? I know when you're not making shots, maybe you're hesitant to shoot. I just think he needs to keep shooting and penetrate, do whatever he needs to do. I think he's a phenomenal player. I just didn't think he shot enough last night. I don't know how many shots he had.
It's crazy. He was 5 of 13, right? But I think, your perception of that is because he didn't take a lot of shots early. He didn't take a lot of shots. He probably took a lot more in the second half. Maybe he should have been more assertive offensively early in the game in the first half. But I agree in the sense that, some people have questioned me about, is Walter a true point guard and so forth. Listen, scoring point guards are great weapons, and I probably alluded to this before in the show, but Anthony Roberson, and you look at what Florida did with him, he and Matt Walsh, and they won that first SEC tournament title in 2005. I mean, that's an amazing. That puts a defense in a lot of bind when you have a point guard that can score and that can just come down and transition and take 3-pointers, and that's when Walter's, I think, at his best. But he's proven the ability to he's had some high assist games too. I think he just kind of fits. I think he figures out the flow of the game and tries to fit what he needs to be on that given night. And I think that's what's made him effective, throughout the season. He just simply kind of had a little bit of an off night against Georgia, and the turnovers crept up again. And I think those things are going to happen from time to time, but, I just don't think that, you don't want to see 5 turnovers every night, but every once in a while you might have one of those games.
There are many car washes in Gainesville, but only one Gallo car wash, locally owned by UF alum and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes. Locations on Northwest 13th Street and Southwest Wilson Road, and coming soon to Jonesville. We got Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun talking a little hoops right now. All right, as you mentioned, the Aggies roll in, then you got Alabama and Ole Miss. So this 3-game stretch before we go to Nashville is going to be pretty difficult. Were you surprised going into last night's game, Kevin? And obviously Joe Lunardi has been doing these bracketology for years, and he's usually pretty good. He already had Florida on the 2 line going into the game last night. Did that surprise you at all?
A little bit. I think that, obviously I know in the beginning of the week, they dropped from 2 to 3 in the poll. I took a little time off over the weekend, so I didn't necessarily see, the LSU game. I heard about it. But I do know they obviously had, some disappointing stretches in that game too, before they really pulled away late. So I don't know if the eye test played into them from dropping to 2 to 3 in the polls. which was a little surprising. And then, I heard about the Lenardi thing yesterday. I just think with the way the Quad 1 records have fallen with Florida, I think maybe that's why. But, they've got an opportunity here because you've got 3 straight Quad 1 games to close the season now in Texas A&M, Alabama on the road, and Ole Miss. So just take advantage of that. And I think if you do that, you'll get back on the 1 seed line. I think ideally you'd like to take at least 2 out of these next 3, but if you can take all 3, then I think you put yourself in a really good position, in the SEC tournament. And you just never know what the conference tournaments do, what committees are going to do. I mean, I remember one year, Indiana played itself into the NCAA tournament, I think 4 or 5 years ago, based on their performance in the conference tournament. And it seemed like the committee weighed that. And then some other years, I just feel like that they have the bracket made up before the conference tournaments even began. So it's kind of hit or miss there. So you don't want to put yourself in that position where, you're trying to play into a 1 seed in the conference tournament because you never know if the committee's already going to have their mind made up.
Yeah, for sure. Wolf Gator here has a lot of comments about us getting bullied by teams like Houston or A&M. Yes, I agree. I've watched them play. They're both very good teams, especially the Houston Cougars. However, you got to look at it this way, Wolf Gator. If you jump on those teams early and get big leads, you coast to victory because they have trouble scoring. So you can look however you want to look at it. But yeah, the Houston Cougars, the Houston Cougars can score the basketball better than they ever have under Kelvin Sampson this year. They got some guys that actually can shoot the basketball for a change. Tony's question for you, Kevin, on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law. Can Kevin tell us what is up with Miami baseball?
Like I said, hey, I will tell you this, that, the Miami transfer, Blake Sear, had a home run last night for Stetson. So this is going to be kind of a revenge game for him. But I'll be covering some of that series over the weekend, and Florida's off to a nice start for sure. And certainly, I think Miami, it's just one of those things that since Kevin O'Sullivan came into, I think since Kevin O'Sullivan came to Florida, there used to be this kind of like unwritten rule that, if you were the Florida coach, you didn't recruit South Florida very hard. Kevin O'Sullivan has thrown that out the window, and I think that's hurt Miami for sure, because Miami used to think that they could, get all the best players from their area, and it's not happening anymore. And the tide has turned in terms of the number of College World Series appearances. But I think Miami's been in the wilderness baseball-wise, too, since Jim Morris retired. He was, a great, excellent coach. And I go all the way back to Ron Fraser, who won the 2 national championships when I was a student there. But it's hard to follow 2 legendary coaches, and they've had a hard time, I think, getting the right guy in the chair since those 2 left.
Joseph has an interesting question here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law. Anyone else feel like conference tournaments are starting to feel like conference championships in football, not really worth the risk in the long run for the big tournament? Now, it depends on who you are. Now, there's going to be the Oklahomas or those teams in the SEC that are Georgia, for example, that are going to kind of be on the bubble, last 4 in, last 4 out, all that kind of nonsense. If they win some games in their tournament, it gets them in. And obviously, the smaller tier get automatic bids by winning their conference tournament. Your thoughts on that, Kevin?
I think, and Todd pointed out last year about the fact that I think Florida came into the SEC tournament projected as like maybe an 8 or a 9 seed, and had that run to the SEC tournament finals, and they only moved up to a 7. And I felt like last year the committee didn't really take the conference tournaments into account as much as you would think in terms of, the seeding lines and so forth. And it definitely benefits obviously the teams that, are on the bubble and that need to get in more so than the big teams. I mean, again, and this goes back 20 years to Billy Donovan, and, the SEC is never going to give it up because they love that TV time slot, or they must have a ratings deal, with CBS, and now it's ABC. But, playing 1 o'clock on a Sunday when, some teams have a Thursday turnaround is not ideal. And plus your conference tournament gets overshadowed, it's like, you have Selection Sunday that night. I'd like to see them move it back to Saturday.
I agree.
I think a lot of fans would. You look at last year, right? Florida and Auburn made the SEC tournament finals last year. Auburn won it. Both guys got bounced in the round of 64. So, whereas Alabama and Tennessee that bowed out on Friday, Tennessee gets the Elite Eight, Alabama gets to the Final Four. So there is something to be said for, if you're in a position of 1 or 2 seed of bowing out early and just, focusing on the bigger tournament. But that's not good for the conference tournaments either, unfortunately.
Kevin, Andy's question for you, Kevin, on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melon. Did you see that Indiana brought out the Bobby Knight's throne chair and put it on the sidelines for its 40-year anniversary versus Purdue? It must have worked. It worked.
It worked because they beat the Boilermakers. Yeah, I mean that's something. Indiana, they love holding on to those traditions. They love holding on to the past. It's kind of funny because I don't know if I've ever shown you this thing. Indiana has this video. It's like Martha the Mop Lady. It's like their hype thing. Everyone has their like Tom Petty thing where it's this kind of like older maid-looking woman who's mopping the floor and she's singing the Indiana fight song. And then I was thinking about like the Dazzlers performance the other day with the Swiffer mops. I think it was against Oklahoma. And I'm thinking that the contrast between the two programs, like the old school and the modern, and how Florida also embraces modern basketball, and Indiana, hasn't figured out yet that you have to sink a bunch of 3-pointers to win the game. It's an interesting contrast. Like, they haven't figured out analytics. They're still trying to play in the 80s in Indiana and think they can get by in toughness and defense all the time.
Last question for you. How deep can St. John's go?
Oh, I think they could go to the Final Four, yeah, because, you can't count out Rick Pitino. They do have issues making free throws, shooting the basketball. And let's not forget last night, too. We didn't mention this. I mean, 18 to 29 from the foul line. At one point, Florida was 10 to 20, too. And when you're trying to play uphill like that and you miss free throws, I mean, it's just another, hard, thing to overcome. And but St. John's does have some free throw problems. They have some shooting problems, but they play hard. They turn you over. That would be not an ideal matchup for Florida again because, Rick Pitino knows Walter Clayton and he would go after Walter Clayton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's done a phenomenal job there for sure. Kevin, good stuff as always. Let everybody know they can follow you on Twitter and listen to your podcast.
Yeah. Gatorsports.com, Gainesville.com, and at Kevin Brockway G1.
Appreciate your time, my friend. Enjoy the Canes and the Gators.
Yeah, it should be a fun weekend at the Ball Yard, and then we got Miami, Texas A&M or Florida, Texas A&M, excuse me, on Saturday, big night, and college game days in town too. So it's going to be.
What time is that game? The basketball game.
It's an 8:30 p.m. game on SEC Network.
Oh, okay, all right.
Late night at the O-Dome. Maybe we'll see you there soon.
All right. That's Kevin Brockway joining us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it. We stand by it. I want to thank Kevin and JC for joining us today. Tomorrow's program, we'll have Brent Beard and we'll have Mike Morgan from the SEC Network, and we'll continue talking hoops. Gators lose to the Dogs, but they'll bounce back. Have a great day, folks. Take care.